it's a thing. Like I really love unwashed Ethiopian beans that taste like blueberry. And if I told someone that, they'd probably know what I'm talking about. A barista.
Sure, with anything, if you get deep into it enough, you'll find something to be into it about, Like the comparison I was using was back when I was living on the dorms. Like my buddies would go to the gym. I wouldn't go to the gym, but they would go to the gym. Sometimes by themselves, sometimes together, but every time they would come back and like talk to each other about what they did in the gym, right? And, like, oh, I, like, crush my abs, I juice my pecs, I smash my eyes, and I have no idea what they're saying, but they do. And it's fascinating.
I juiced my eyes? Hello, and welcome to All Doubt. I'm Joel.
I'm Vincent.
And today we have something a little bit different. We're going to start doing a season way of organizing the show. So this will be episode 1 of our first official season. Within this, we're going to talk about everything that we would normally talk about within the frame of something. I'll tell you our first frame in a moment. Our first subject.
Yeah, like from my understanding, we're doing similar things, but rather than having them all spaced out over however many weeks, intermixed with other things, we're doing them as a lump.
Yeah.
As like a block of like all of this.
Yeah, and just to organize everything that we've been listening to and watching and talking about. So we'll be starting to do that as of this episode. Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah.
Yes.
And by the end of it, we'll have an episode where we tie all the themes together and talk about what we've learned in whatever context it comes to. Sort of like a final essay, final thesis. Let's make it more fun than that.
You're on your own, bud.
Final episode. So our first theme is going to be C for classics. Nope. What was it again?
Capital C classic movies?
Right. Capital C classic movies. We're starting with Rebel Without a Cause, and we'll have a whole bunch of other black and white great movies from back in the day when we weren't alive.
Rebel Without a Cause was pointedly not a black and white film.
Oh, you're so right.
Very distinct red jacket. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. We'll be talking about Rebel Without a Cause.
His white shirt, so,
Yes, that is half of the thing you said. But before we talk about Rebel Without a Cause, Joel, what have you been up to?
Oh man. Quite a few things.
I know it has been many moons since we have last recorded.
Yeah, it's been a couple months. Well, I've been watching Parks and Rec as far as watching things, but that's been in my time to decompress from all the other stuff I've been doing. Finishing school, I started to work a couple new part-time jobs, teaching music. I just had some exams. I had a concert recently. Most fun thing is yesterday I started kickboxing.
Ooh.
Yeah. I haven't kickboxed in like 7 years. I did it when I was younger, about 20. It's so much fun. It's all padded and safe, so it's more just about like the movements at this point.
Right.
I mean, of course it's padded. It's not like a Fight Club scenario.
Like street fighting.
Yeah. I joined this street fighting group. Yeah, so it's great. I'm still incredibly sore. My back and the backs of my legs, just the back of my body, I haven't used those muscles in 7 years. So they're killing me.
If I knew more about the video game Street Fighter, I would have made some references to that. But no, that's great.
Yeah, thanks. I'm also living in this town, New West. It's a small town in Greater Vancouver. One of the first towns where people settled here. I've been living here for about 6 months, and I'm starting to feel some real town pride. So,
oh, yeah?
Yeah, I really love it. And kickboxing is in New West, so I'm feeling more like a part of the community now. Yeah, one of my few jobs is working in New West, too, teaching music. Tell me more about you. What's new with you?
Well, I have watched a lot of TV shows since we last recorded. One of them was Young Justice.
Oh.
Have you heard about this? It was from a couple years ago. 2010, 2011-ish, I'm going to say. It's like the Justice League, but the sidekicks.
Oh.
All together, they have their own little team.
Isn't that Teen Titans?
I will talk about that in a second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But it's got Superboy, it's got Kid Flash, It's got Aqualad.
Okay, come on.
And
go on.
And it's legitimately good.
Oh.
Like, I have not cared this much about a DC property since Teen Titans.
Oh, yeah?
Like, it is good.
Yeah.
The first couple episodes took some time to, like, spin up.
Yeah.
But so there were 2 seasons, and then it stopped. I hear there's a 3rd season coming out on Netflix. It's one of those, like, Netflix revivals. So I'm excited about that. But so the first season, the first couple episodes are sort of slow when they're still putting the pieces down. But as the episodes go on, they start taking place closer and closer together. Cause there's a little, like, date time location in the corner whenever they change a scene. So it's like, Mount Justice, I think is the name of cause of course it is.
Oh, it's not Mount Justice Jr. or Baby Mount Justice?
No, I think they're using, like, the Justice League, who shows up every once in a while.
Oh.
We're like, this used to be our base, and then we got our super cool space satellite base that you're not supposed to hear about.
Oh.
But so you kids can have this be your base. So it's like Mount Justice, 12 p.m. October 1st or whatever. So it's like a date and time. But then as it goes on, the things just start happening closer and closer together. So it's like literally like the very next day they have another mission.
Oh.
And I think one of them's jokes like, this is the 3rd time in a row that I almost drowned to death during a mission. And then, like, for the previous 2 episodes, this character had, like, nearly drowned.
Oh.
So, and with the timing, those 2 previous episodes happened, like, the day before this and the day before that.
Oh.
So as they get, like, closer together, there's more references and you're seeing more of the bigger picture. Oh. And it's very well written.
Yeah.
It was really, really good. I would recommend it. I feel like it might be a bit too big to be a thing we talk about specifically here.
Yeah. Like right now.
I mean, like, as a assignment or whatever we talk about.
Oh,
we
yeah.
call them.
Yeah.
But no, I really recommend it. It was really good. There's a 3rd season coming out at some point. I also watched, Thor Ragnarok.
Oh, how was that?
I really enjoyed it. Much better than the second one.
Oh.
It was more fun. I've heard a lot of people theorizing that it's, in terms of art direction, them trying to bridge the gap between Thor and Asgard and so on, and, like, the bright colors of, like, Guardians of the Galaxy with their bright 80s colors.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it did a good job of that. Really enjoyed it.
Is it like another throwback to the 80s kind of thing?
Yeah, sort of. Not as much as Guardians of the Galaxy is, but much more than you'd expect for a Thor movie. Because, like, the first Thor movie was very much, like, present day, fish out of water. Yeah. Sort of like a rom-com, arguably. And the second one was, like, super dark with these evil space elves trying to kill everybody.
Oh, was it?
And
I only saw the first one.
Good. I've heard, and, like, the second one was so poorly received, and the 3rd one, the new one, Thor Ragnarok, was so well done that some people are saying just skip the second one.
Oh.
Because they sort of summarize the second movie in the early parts of the 3rd one.
Oh, man.
So like, you can just get the broad strokes, basically. From doing that. But yeah, no, it was good. I also watched, the new movie of Murder on the Orient Express.
Oh, how was it?
Yeah, it was weirdly good. It was better than I was expecting.
Oh.
It was much more, faithful to the book than I was expecting it.
Oh.
Because from the trailer. Now, listener, I don't know if you've seen the trailer, but, the movie's already out, but if you go back and watch the first trailer.
Yeah.
I think we might have mentioned this in the Murder on the Orient Express episode.
Yeah.
With the trailer, it's this, like, well, for the Murder on the Orient Express, it's a very, like, quiet British, story.
Yeah.
It's very, like, looking for clues and not so much chase scenes or like fist fights or whatever. It's a very, like, quiet British, mystery. But in the trailer, the background music they have is Believer by Imagine Dragons.
Oh.
Which is, like, a very, like, rhythmic, but, like, in your face. Like, what genre would you say that is?
Imagine Dragons?
Yeah.
I don't know, like modern rock.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very, like, peppy, maybe not peppy, but a very like loud. I guess I don't have the words for this. You're the music guy. I'm sure you would have more words for this. But so I was very surprised when I first saw the trailer. Like, what kind of tone are they going to take with this movie? Is Poirot just going to like waltz up the train steps, like twirling his cane? Just like
with Poirot, you'd expect like jazz, like trad jazz from the 30s or something.
Yeah, and that was the same direction that the TV show went, with sort of like a quiet, like modern jazz, easy listening kind of jazz thing, I think.
Or just like creepy kind of classical music.
Yeah, or classical, like anything, like not rock. Like, Poirot is not really, I don't think, Murder on the Orient Express and think rock music.
No.
But anyway, but the movie was more faithful to the book than I was expecting.
Huh.
And while the Poirot in the movie has like a bigger mustache than David Suchet, Poirot, apparently it's much more closer to the books, because in the books he's supposed to have like a huge mustache.
Yeah, I noticed that. I always thought that was odd, because they describe Poirot as having a big mustache, and then the one that we were used to seeing in the show as the tiny proper one.
But yeah, and it was like, I was surprised, like, one, I was surprised at how faithful to the book it was, and also surprised at how, like, procedural and how, like, quiet and how, like, talky and dramatic the movie was.
Oh.
Cause in addition to the Imagine Dragons, it was a very, like, I'm going to say modern trailer with a lot of action happening. And I noticed in the movie that the action scenes were there, but they were sort of spaced out to like punctuate stuff. Like if it was a TV movie, that'd be where the commercials were, you know, they were sort of like evenly spaced out.
Oh.
To like, I guess, wake people back up. But also, I was surprised at how many people in the audience with me, I guess, didn't know the story. I guess that maybe because I'm just an English major, so I've heard of this before. But towards the end, towards the like dramatic reveal, people were like leaning forward in their seats. When it all came together, I heard some like sniffling of like people getting like choked up by the events of it. There's a couple like flashback scenes in the movie to like, because they can, I guess, you know, they can show things happening. And some of those were sort of cheesy, especially of the how it happened flashback, which I was sort of, this sort of looks goofy. So the thing, and I was sort of like disappointed at how sort of goofy it looked. But people were still sort of like really like sniffling and still leaning forward in their seats and like in like, I was going to say enraptured, but that's not the right word, but like really engaged in the story. And that was surprising, because when I consumed the story the first time, it was like a radio drama, whatever, and I didn't really, but yeah, I was super surprised. I would recommend it.
I remember you saying you were surprised that I didn't know the ending.
Yes.
And I took a poll with some coworkers, and everyone I asked has not read this book and doesn't know the ending. I have a feeling that maybe people our age just aren't reading Agatha Christie as much. I don't know. It's
sure, but like
from the people I asked.
I think I brought this up the last time you brought up the survey you took, and like how many of them are English majors?
Yeah, 0. But I am, and I've never heard of it. I don't know. There's so many stories out there.
Yeah, but like I had always heard Murder on the Orient Express in the context as one of those stories where everyone knows the ending.
Oh yeah.
Where like it's one where it's one of those endings that it's like big enough that everyone knows the ending before they know the story, really. There are some other books and movies and whatever like that, but I'm not going to mention them in case we're going to talk about them in case you haven't seen them.
And we mentioned them in the episode we did on Murder on the Orient Express. We ruined those stories back then.
Yeah. But yeah, that's what I've been doing since the last time we recorded. I really recommend Young Justice. Thor Ragnarok was great. And Murder on the Orient Express 2017 was also very good.
Well, I really recommend Parks and Rec, although I don't think I really need to. It's
a great show.
Insanely popular show. Yeah, and
still holds up.
Yeah. It was the episodes I'm watching, I'm on season 6. They're from like 2013, I think.
Yeah, so something like that.
It's funny that it does look like a different time. And
a happier time?
Well, just different. Like, the phones are older and the way people are consuming, the way the characters are consuming things is different. Like the way they're watching shows and And even like I'm aware that this is a TV show now in the era before Netflix, and sort of in the era of, well, I guess in the era of commercial skipping, but I feel like that's even stronger now. In my mind, there's less people who are watching TV, watching through the commercials and waiting every week to see a new episode like you would have with Parks and Rec. We have more of a Netflix thing now.
Although some parts of Netflix are doing that. Like some of their shows are internationally branded under Netflix, but locally aren't.
Oh.
Like, for example, Riverdale. Like, in the US, it's a CW show, I believe. But outside the US, it's a Netflix show.
Oh.
And since it's not fully a Netflix show, I imagine that's why it is, but it still follows the release schedule of whatever the station is. So Riverdale, when it's coming out, comes out one episode a week.
Yeah.
Right. And it shows up on the CW, and then it shows up on Netflix like the day after. So it's a different model than what you do with like Stranger Things. Oh, I also watched the second season of Stranger Things.
Oh, sweet.
So it's been a while. It's been quite a while. Whereas, Stranger Things, Orange is the New Black, the Netflix Marvel shows all show up as a lump sum, as a single burst.
Yeah.
Whereas the ones, I feel like they also do that with some other shows. I think Dynasty. I think they rebooted Dynasty, which is a soap opera onto Netflix now. But I feel like its home is on some other station. But with those, they like drip feed it, like one episode a week.
Yeah, that to me is the experience I used to have watching The Office when I was in high school, where my whole family would watch it, and we'd once a week get together and do it, and like we wouldn't skip the commercials because we didn't have whatever you would need at the time. Yeah. And it does things that Parks and Rec does, where at the end it'll be like, stay tuned for more Parks and Rec. And then it's just like 10 seconds of like one stinger. Gag. Yeah. And then credits.
Some shows still do that.
Oh, really?
Not The Good Place, even though that's by the same people, but like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., new season just came out. If you wanted to timestamp where this is, new season just came out. It's great. Season 4 was amazing.
Yeah.
Also too big to put on our list, but also recommend that. But that one also has like a, after the last like final scene. That's grammatically incorrect. After the climax, the end of the climax, there's like a stay tuned for more Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And then there's like the stinger, like the 30-second last clip at the very end, So some shows still do that.
And it's just made to take you through the commercials,
I guess. Well, the TV shows as a whole arguably are there to take you through the commercials.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good way to think about it.
Like that's the I think it was, I don't know if it was early TV or like all the way up to early radio programs, but they were from what I understand. Listeners, let me know if I'm incorrect. But that the programming was just there to keep people entertained between the commercials.
Makes sense.
If they weren't, I don't know, listening to Superman punch Nazis, they wouldn't stay tuned to listen to commercials about soap.
Yeah, and that's where the name soap opera comes from.
Yeah.
Right? It's just made to sell the soap commercials.
Yeah, these operas that are sponsored by these soap companies.
Yeah. Speaking of shows from a previous era, why don't we segue into... Let me try this over again. I'm trying to segue into
Let's
Turner
keep
Class.
all of this in.
Sweet. You always suggest that. I don't think I will. Well, I guess that's sort of on my mind right now, is the difference between shows when they were released and when we're watching them. And this is exactly what we're thinking about when we're watching Rebel Without a Cause, which is our show for today, our thing to consume for today, to watch. Because you can't not watch something made in the 50s and not think about how it's different today. And especially with Rebel Without a Cause. And we'll get into how deep that goes. But any theme that I think about with the movie, I end up comparing it to my own experience today and what I see in general today. Like, it touches on topics like masculinity, really heavily, and family, and being a teenager. And it's interesting to think about just like, how people thought of this, how the company making the movie thought to sell it, And things like you were saying, even the concept of teenager wasn't really a firm thing necessarily at this time, when this show seems to be about being a teenager and about finding yourself and what an adult is. All these things that I take for granted nowadays. Well, one thing in particular, a theme that keeps coming back in the show that struck me, in the movie that struck me, is James Dean's character, Jim, and how he relates to his father. This is one of the main themes.
Do we want to give like a brief summary of the plot?
Yeah, I had that thought too. You want to take a shot at it?
Do you want me?
I want you to.
Okay.
Yep.
So, there's three main characters. There's Jim, played by James Dean.
Yeah.
There's John, who goes by Plato.
Plato is in the philosopher Plato.
Yes. And there's also Judy.
Who goes by Judy?
Goes by Judy. Maybe that's why they're all the main characters. Their names all start with J.
Yeah.
But anyway, at the beginning, they don't meet, but they all show up at the same police station at the same time, which was interesting. Yeah. But it's clear that it's explained by them being at the police station that they all have unhappy home lives. There's issues with their parents individually.
And for all three of them, it's pretty strongly about their fathers, right?
Yeah.
Judy's dad, it was being borderline abusive to her, if not abusive. Yeah. And then Jim shows his problems with his dad. And they mention that Plato's dad is completely absent, and his mom's absent.
Plato's father is dead, I believe.
Oh. I wasn't clear on that. I might have missed that.
But I was gonna say, like, it was for all of them, it was both their parents, but now that I think about it, I don't think Judy's mom does anything at all.
She's hardly in it.
Yeah. She is there to show that they have separate beds.
Yeah, that's right. Nothing suspicious going on here.
Much beyond that. But, so it's established that they all have, parental issues of interesting, very diverse parental issues. Mm-hmm. They go to school. I don't know how much detail I need to put into this. James Dean's character gets enough. He somehow gets the bully, who happens to be Judy's boyfriend, starts hassling James Dean's character, Jim.
And his name is Buzz, the
Buzz.
bully guy. And he's like borderline he's borderline a bully. He's more just like a bored kid in my mind.
He's got a leather jacket and a gang of friends.
When you say a gang of friends, yeah, he sounds like a bully.
His friends also have leather jackets.
That's true. And he was bullying Jim. Oh, yeah.
So they have like a casual switchblade fight outside an observatory. They decide to shift into a car thing. Where they drive at a cliff.
Mm-hmm. Well, they play a game of chicken, and their version of it is first person to jump out of their car driving towards a cliff.
Yeah. Loses,
and if they stay in the car, they die.
So, James Dean survives that because he's the main character, whereas Buzz gets caught on the door, the car door, so he is unable to escape his car, and I guess also brake. So he flies over the cliff to his fiery death. I
don't mean to laugh. There's just something funny about flying. He drives down and he explodes.
Instantaneously explodes.
Yeah.
James Dean goes home. He is upset. No, this is before. Sorry. Before that, James Dean, between the switchblade fight and the fire car wreck, James Dean goes home, runs into his father, who is wearing a frilly lady's apron, underscoring his issue with his parents that his dad is not man enough and should beat his wife every once in a while.
Yeah. Well, let's analyze that first.
Oh yeah, let's go over like the parental issues. So that's James Dean's character's issue. Judy's issue is that she wants to be allowed to kiss her dad on the mouth, and her dad's not having any of that.
Okay, hold on. Well, specifically, yes, she wants to show affection to her dad, and her dad wants her to not be a child. It's probably how he would phrase it.
And Plato's parents, his dad, I believe was like a war hero, but is now dead. And his mom is barely ever home, and he's being raised by their nanny.
Yeah.
I believe. James Dean is very upset that his father is cooking and wearing an apron. Then he goes to the ill-advised car showdown. Buzz dies. James Dean has an argument with his parents because he wants to talk to the cops, but they don't want him to. His dad fails him again in his eyes. He runs into Judy, and they have sort of a flirty encounter, even though her boyfriend just died a fiery death like 12 hours before. They go to do they run into Plato? Or at some point they run into Plato, and then they go to this mansion, abandoned mansion.
He finds them there.
Okay, right. They go to this mansion that Plato had pointed out before.
And they're at the same time they're running from these bullies who want to make sure Jim doesn't talk about Buzz dying. Buzz's
gang friends run into Jim outside the police station because Jim wants to tell the cops what happened. He's unable to because the cool cop he makes friends with at the beginning of the episode, at the beginning of the movie, is not there for some reason. But the gang members don't know that, so they think he might have narked on them. So they're after him. So then Plato finds Jim and Judy in the abandoned mansion. They have like a very idyllic interaction of Jim and Judy sort of being mom and dad and Plato being the kid in like a sort of way. But that's spoiled by the bully showing up, by the gang member showing up, and then Plato has a gun. And then he flees. Oh, there's also like a night watchman who finds them, a cop who finds them and chases Plato all the way back to the observatory, which is like far away from the establishing shot at the beginning.
We never mentioned, but the observatory was where the knife fight happened.
No, I think I described it as a casual knife fight outside the observatory.
I think you said outside of the school. It doesn't really matter.
Anyway.
But we're back
so they return to the set piece of the observatory. Or is it like the planetarium? I don't know.
Right, yeah, it's a planetarium.
Something where they project stars onto inside of a dome.
Yeah, that would not be an observatory.
They go there. They have a showdown with the cops. Jim and Judy try to talk Plato down because he's freaking out that the two main characters were abandoning him. Long story short, he gets shot by the cops.
Yeah.
In a very tragic death, and the two surviving main characters are shaken by the tragic death of their, I guess, friend. I think it takes place over 2 days, right? So it's not really not really deep friendships, really.
That's true. Well, they did just see a kid get shot, regardless.
Right, but I mean, it's not like I knew him when I was a child.
Well,
kind of thing.
I mean, that's already getting into the weirdness of the relationships in this. Like, Judy tells Jim that she loves him, and this is literally just hours after her boyfriend has died in the horrific car accident. Yeah, and they're just kissing and okay with it, and they're pretending to be Plato's mom and dad in this like emotionally heightened little scenario. It's odd how close they get and how fast it happens.
Yeah, and like. Well, with her, Judy, I have notes about their names because they all start with J. And Jim is played by James Dean, so that's another J. Anyway, so
Jim's a shortened version of James.
Also confusing.
Yes.
But I feel like we, the audience, are supposed to see Judy, latching onto Jim immediately after the boyfriend's death as like as good or as like what's supposed to happen, like they're sort of meant to be together kind of thing. I don't remember any particular example from any scenes from the movie where that is proven, but I feel like them being main characters sort of makes it so that they're supposed to be together.
It's like a trope from the time, for sure. You have the hero and the heroine. Would that be the right term for those two?
Yeah.
Yeah, like they're supposed
to the male and female leads, yeah.
Yeah. I think at the time you would expect those two to be together.
Yeah, now that the, like, sort of bully is out, because he didn't really, aside from the, like, switchblade fight that
it wasn't
they had,
that bad, right?
Yeah, no, it sounds bad, but when James Dean takes off his shirt later, he's barely hurt.
Yeah, it's like they're just goofing around.
Yeah, and then they just, like, agree to have a car thing later on of, like, because in the fight, it looked like James Dean got got stabbed several times.
Yeah.
But he's just talking like a normal person afterwards.
Yeah.
When they're like arranging their next showdown.
Yeah.
I would be much more upset.
Yeah.
If I got stabbed several times.
So the themes that are coming back that are all sort of tying together are growing up and your parents. Those are sort of together. How they don't really know what they're doing and they act strangely, which could be, from our point of view, could be because they're teens. Like we can't. And then on top of that,
is the time difference between those years and now?
Yeah, exactly. And then a third theme. I just had it. I forget it. So like two main themes that we're seeing prominently in this are how these characters deal with their parents and how they deal with growing up, and everything revolves around those. What I was getting at before with their dads is they all seem to have these weird relationships with their dads that are related to how they're growing up. Like Jim keeps pretty forwardly asking his dad what it is to be a man, and is pretty forwardly getting mad that his dad isn't doing traditional masculine things. Like he says openly, which surprised both of us, of course, that Jim says, like, why can't my dad just hit my mom every once in a while? We were both like, what's that? What are you talking about, Jim? And he gets mad seeing his dad in an apron, like I said, frilly apron. Yeah, at the time, clearly a woman's apron for 1950s aesthetics. And also at the same time doing the cleaning and the cooking. And
he's holding like a tray of food and he's like on his hands and knees cleaning it up because he like dropped it.
Yeah, he doesn't want the mom to see.
So he's not even in like a manly like standing pose or whatever. Yeah. He's in like a subservient, like cleaning.
Yeah, totally. And to me, as myself seeing this, I just saw a nice dad. But like he just seems to be taking care of the house. He's kind of goofy. That's why he's okay with wearing a suit with a frilly apron over top of it. Yeah,
he was wearing the apron like over his like suit.
Yeah, his house suit probably. Yeah, yeah, I saw him as being helpful, and he's just patient and not perfect by any means. And I wonder if we're supposed to see him as positive or negative, because I see him as generally a positive role model. But we're very often seeing Jim saying, like, why isn't my dad more manly?
Yeah, like I don't know, like, in terms of the context of the time, whether we're supposed to be by default agreeing with what Jim is saying or not.
Yeah.
But I feel like in the scene after the fiery car wreck, where he's arguing with his parents about how he wants to go to the cops and how they don't want to, the scenes where Jim is arguing with his mom, and the dad is sort of in the background, and Jim is asking his dad to like stand up for him.
Yeah, for Jim.
And the dad is just unable to. He's just like literally like facing his hands, like I cannot do that. I feel like that's supposed to show him being like not I don't know, like not aggressive, but not like
dominant or confident.
Yeah, not confident enough, not like assertive enough.
Yeah. And
that he's very very much to the like henpecked husband, whereas the mom, the wife, is the like domineering, shrill, mean, angry lady stereotype.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear that that's how Jim and his dad feel, because they hardly even look at Jim's mom, right? Whenever she's talking, they look to each other and start talking to each other.
I feel like some of that though is that like she interrupts a lot.
Oh yeah.
So I feel like it might just be like they're having a conversation. I don't have the numbers on this, so I don't. I might be incorrect about this, but I feel like some of it is Jim trying to talk to his father, and the mom trying to interrupt and take over. Yeah. Because like I said, in the scene when Jim is arguing with his mom, he is looking straight at her.
Yeah. Well, he looks at her when he's angry.
I feel like most conversations are angry, though, in this movie.
Yeah.
From Jim and his parents.
Yeah. And it might be because he's a young man that the focus of this is on his dad and how he wants He wants a parental role like that cop might provide, the friendly cop.
Yeah, who was mysteriously absent when he was needed the most.
Yeah, just a plot device, I guess.
For dramatic reasons, yes.
Yeah. But he seems to be, so he doesn't think he can look to his mom for this kind of role, and his dad's not providing what he expects of masculinity. And then the people in his world otherwise are violent young men who, like, aren't even insanely violent. They're just casually violent. Just everything they do is violent. Or John, who just looks up to, Plato, who looks up to Jim as a father figure, who also isn't really on the same footing. Like, Jim couldn't really look up to Plato because Plato was looking up to him so much. So he doesn't have
and also like literally in the physical sense, like Plato is like a head shorter or so than James Dean's character.
Yeah, he's the one character who does look like a 16-year-old.
Yeah, like I mentioned this before, but I was really surprised when it turns out that they're all 16. Mm-hmm. You know, like, hold on, I'm gonna look up how old the lady is.
Okay, go on.
Okay, so Natalie Wood, who played Judy, is 17.
Really?
She was born in 38.
And this was
the guy who
filmed
played 55. Yeah. Plato was born in 39. So.
And what was the actor's name?
Salminio. And James Dean was born in, waiting for it to load, 31.
Okay.
So he's the oldest.
He's not 16, that's for sure.
But I was still surprised that, he's 24.
Yeah, okay, he looks like a 24-year-old, but he acts like a 17-year-old.
But yeah, no, I was surprised because they did not look like they were 16 to me. Mm-hmm. I feel like, I guess, much of that, like now that I learned that they're closer to 16 than I thought they were, that, I guess it's just the clothing and like the hair.
Yeah. Well, that's the same thing I was saying. If all the boys are clean-shaven, like fresh haircuts in suits, and all the ladies are in dresses and made-up hair and makeup, they all look somewhere between 16 to 30. You can't really tell until someone has gray hair.
Yeah.
Maybe that was a 50s thing. Like, my grandparents looked like that, too, when they were 20. Like, pictures of them when they were late teens. They could be any age.
But going back to the police station scene at the very beginning, I wonder what that's like. What's the movie saying about police and their role in the community? Because like they could have easily, I don't know about easily, but they could have had them meet somewhere else, or like no, they don't even meet. They could have had them all show up together separately somewhere else.
Yeah.
So like, how is that positioning? Do you think police in the movie? Because at the beginning, you know, they're the police. Or it's just the one cop. The one cop helps all three of them.
Oh, yeah.
At the beginning, right? Or no. Was there someone else with Plato?
I think there might have been 2 cops or 3. I couldn't really tell, actually. I don't really remember, I guess.
I feel like one cop talked to at least 2 of them. Mm-hmm. I don't know about all 3. But, like, the cops are there to try and help them. Mm-hmm. I guess the cop that was talking to Judy sort of, like, thought she was a hooker or something. I don't
Did he?
Yeah, he's like, oh, all right. Young lady walking around wearing that.
Really?
Yeah, no, that was her whole thing. That was the whole thing of, like, she was like, how dare you?
No, she was saying her dad said that to her, right?
No, that was the cops. Like they picked her up because they thought she was soliciting.
Oh,
because like she was wearing like a really like bright red coat, which I guess was code back in the day.
I don't know.
But so they're there, but then what is that? Yeah, so that there the cops are arguably trying to help, at least especially the main cop guy.
Yeah.
Jim goes to the cops for help after Buzz horrifically dies in the car crash. Mm-hmm. But then at the end, the cops shoot Plato.
Yeah, they do. Well, you're asking like about them being positioned in the same spot at the beginning. We could just say that's a narrative device to introduce them all. But it could also be indicative of what happens throughout, that these adults don't know how to deal with these little adults. Like, if they don't have a classification as teens for them, which I'm not certain if they do or if they don't at that time, it's these younger people looking for adults to look up to. And the police, like, the first thing we see is them talking to them like they're responsible and they know what's going on. Like, and they're clearly not. I mean, Jim is drunk. Judy was running away from her dad, from what I gather, which That's not super irresponsible.
Yeah, no, that was also not the, like, when, like, that's the first thing we learn about Judy. Like, she is running away from her father.
Yeah.
But so then when I learn what the issue there is, I was not expecting, like, she wants to be more affectionate to her father, but he won't let her. I thought it was, like a more, like straightforward, like, abusive or whatever kind of relationship, and not, like, he won't hug me anymore. That was...
Well, everything is emotional and subtle with these kids. But then with Plato being at the police station, shockingly, he's been shooting puppies.
Yeah, like one of the lines, the first... We're introduced to Plato by the cop who's talking to him saying, "Why did you shoot those puppies, John?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, what?
That was so shocking. That's as shocking as Jim saying, "Why can't my dad just hit my mom?" Like, what are you talking about?
Like, I feel like from a writer's perspective, that's like a very, like, all right, we got it. Like,
oh yeah,
very clear message with this sentence. Why did you shoot those puppies?
It's establishing Plato's character,
I guess, but that it doesn't really. But at least nowadays, you'd expect that to be sort of like an angry, malicious, mean guy, but not. But Plato in the film is very, like, quiet and just shy.
He's like the other kids. He's bored and doesn't know what to do. That's the impression I got. And something that Buzz says to Jim asks him, like, why are we doing this? Why are we about to play chicken with the cliff where we could die? And Buzz says, you gotta do something. And that seems to be the full extent of what these kids think in every situation. There's nothing to do. We gotta do something, so let's kiss.
The full quote is, you gotta do something, don't you? And I was like, no, you don't.
Yeah, he opens that up for you to respond. Yeah. No, you don't have to. Just go home.
So yeah, no, it's like I was reading a bit about the, like, I don't know if it's clear on this, but I didn't quite care for the movie. Right. It's like what? It's like 2 hours, hour 50.
It's pretty long.
I would describe it as like an hour and a half of preamble than 20 minutes of movie, because, like, I don't think it really takes off until they get to the abandoned mansion. I was doing a bit of reading about the movie, and one of the themes that kept popping up was that it was about, like, ennui, about, like, them not knowing what to do, them not having anything else to do, and their home lives not fulfilling the, I don't know, entertainment need that they have, the, like, fun factor that they're looking for, the activities chunk of their time. So they have to, I guess, have switchblade fights during a school field trip.
Well,
and then playing chicken in the dead of night at a cliff.
On top of that, I think it's not just them being bored and needing more activities. It's that they need to do things that tell them what being adults are for each of their own, for each of who they are. Like, what's separating them now between kids and adults. Because they don't seem to just be like friends, let's have a knife fight. It's like, we're gonna prove who's tougher, or what have you.
Yeah, who's chicken.
Yeah, and that's the game they play.
It was a very, before that, when right after Buzz, like, splashes one of Jim's tires.
Yeah. Stabs a tire.
Yeah, he keeps making, like, chicken noises at Jim.
Yeah.
And that was, like, very, I was getting, it reminded me of, Back to the Future.
Oh.
Which comes out after this, of course. But how Marty McFly's character, like, his trigger for anger is being called a chicken.
Oh.
And that's the, like, fatal flaw that he has to overcome. Mm-hmm. And when the minor spoilers for Back to the Future 3, I guess. When at the end he overcomes it, that's supposed to be like, bright future ahead, because you don't freak out when someone makes chicken noises at you anymore.
So your spoiler in Back to the Future 3 is the protagonist overcomes adversity?
Yes. I don't know. Maybe you were really worried he might not make it, like, because that would be really edgy, main character just fails at the conclusion of this trilogy.
Okay. That's a predictable thing. There's a problem. The character overcomes it. That's the ending. What struck me about this movie is that there's not one specific, like, enemy that he overcomes.
There's no villain.
Yeah, it's not like the Beast in Beauty and the Beast and
Weird take.
The what's his name? Guy with the big gloves.
Gaston?
Gaston, yeah.
Oh.
It's not like one specific guy who you're like, yep, that's the asshole. He needs to defeat him, and blah, blah, blah. With this, it's an emotional thing. Everything seems to be based on...
Wait. That guy with the gloves?
He's got big gloves, right?
Okay.
Or a big scarf. He's got a big... No, he doesn't wear a scarf. He's got chest hair. Big chest hair.
Sorry,
he's
continue.
A very clear villain. In this, it looks to be like Buzz is the villain at first. But then halfway through, he's being friendly with Jim, and then he dies. He wasn't like a very... a bully symbol as much as he's just a bored kid.
Yeah, he wasn't he wasn't across the board malicious.
Yeah.
There's a scene where, in that scene where he says, you gotta do something, don't you?
Yeah.
He shares a cigarette with Jim. He takes it from Jim and then gives it back afterwards, but they have like a bonding moment, sort of.
Yeah. And they, like I was saying about Back to the Future 3, like, he has a problem, he overcomes it. But in this, we're following Jim's character around, and if his enemy is boredom, like if I'm going to take that leap and say that, then he doesn't really overcome it. At the end, he just watches Plato die, and he's upset about it, and we don't get anywhere different.
But at the end, though, doesn't his father, promise to be a better dad or something like that?
I don't remember that.
When... I don't remember the wording, and I don't want to watch it again.
Yeah.
But... but I think after Jim is weeping over Plato's dead body, or arguably, because I don't know where he got shot. His
injured body.
His dead and dying body that they're keeping from the paramedics.
Yeah,
because they're being dramatic.
Yeah.
But then, Jim's dad picks Jim up in an embrace. Yeah. And he's like, oh, I'll be the dad you need, or something like that. I forget the exact wording. But yeah, so I feel like that was supposed to be the because, when a movie ends, it sort of suggests the trajectory. Mm-hmm. Whether they it turns out the bad guy's not dead, so there's going to be a sequel. Or the heroes died, but hope prevails, and that's going to win the day in the end, if not right now. Mm-hmm. So I felt in this one, the moving forward trajectory was, I guess, Plato being the manic pixie dream guy, I guess, of his tragic death sort of encouraging Jim and Judy to live better lives or be more appreciative of the lives they have or something. It doesn't really directly solve the dad issue that they seem to all have.
Oh, see, I did see it addressing the dad issue just a touch, because he's openly hugging his dad and he's emotionally distraught. And this is with a dad who seems to be more emotionally open and willing to not be hyper masculine compared to other men in it. And with that, with them hugging, Jim's showing some letting down of his barriers of what he thinks masculinity is. Oh, okay. So the trajectory that I saw going forward was it's not a fast process, but maybe he's learning to complicate what it means to be masculine.
Okay, so you're saying at the end, ideologically, Jim is moving towards his father rather than his father moving towards Jim.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, because his dad, he isn't watches Plato get shot, and he's like, well, that's what happens when you're a man. And they
punches his wife.
God, no.
No, it was interesting because I don't think the wife was there on the scene of the observatory or whatever. Yeah. But I don't know where she was after Plato got shot. Did she also rush to the body the dad did? Or because if she did, she was out of frame for a good chunk of it.
Right. It's scenes like that make me think of this as very centered around people with their dads. The dads seem to be really prominent. But then who was there is Plato's caretaker. So it's being... that idea of dads being involved is made more complex with Plato's caretaker, who we found credits for her as the Crawford family maid. So she's the unnamed caretaker, played by Marietta Cantry, the actor. Canty? Yeah. Which is a shame in and of itself, but this is something from the 50s, so I guess that's to be expected. she is there for Plato throughout the entire thing. She is the mother, or the parental figure.
Yeah, in the, like, 3 scenes that she's in, she does not do anything bad.
Yeah, she's just loving to him.
Yeah. I think the only fault she has is that she is not his actual mom.
Yeah.
You know, like, cause I feel like if she was, then that, like, Plato would have the familial connection that he's looking for, at least in part.
Yeah.
But I think, like the fact that his father is, I believe, dead. His war hero father is...
He's absent regardless.
Yeah, and I think he's dead, though. I think I remember hearing somewhere in the movie that... Anyway, and that his mom is explicitly absent, is what's so upsetting. But if his mom was, I guess, as present as the Crawford family maid, as she's credited, is, then I don't know.
Yeah, it's I find it hard to read that character as maybe her being present but not really important was a form of racism that we're seeing in the movie, that she can't really have an effect on him, or just that she's the maid, so she's not that important to him. Yeah,
like, cause like, arguably, every time she shows up, she's on the clock, you know? It's not like she's...
Like she's caring about him?
I mean, like, she seems to, like, legitimately care about him, but it's not like she's dropping... it's not like she's leaving the office to deal with this.
Oh, it's
like,
her job?
That is arguably, like, you could say her job, part of her duties or whatever.
Yeah.
Not to take away from the one, like, the one good parental figure, and also, like, one of the few people of color in the movie.
Yeah, well, I think it's the 2 of them, right?
Yeah.
It's Plato and his maid.
Yes, but so like it could be argued that sort of, I forget what we were talking about, but
just like parental figures and what the mothers do compared to the fathers, because she, for all intents and purposes, I hate calling her the family maid, but that's what her character name is. She is the mother figure in his family. So what does that mean for him or for us?
Yeah, and like I was going to say of the parents that we're shown, but Judy's parents are only, like, they barely do anything.
Yeah, they're just, like, not super nice to her.
Yeah, and even Jim's mom does stuff, like, drives the plot, in a negative way, in, like, a very, like, as far as Jim's concerned, a very, like, over-the-top, whatever, not good way. But, like, Judy's mom, I think basically all she says is, she tells Judy to drink her tomato juice.
Oh, yeah.
And, like, that's basically it.
That's right. She gasps at one point.
And she's, like, present when they're about to go to sleep to show that they have separate beds.
Yeah.
But yeah, neither of Judy's parents are on the scene at the observatory finale. Plato's maid is the only, like, positive female parental figure.
Yeah.
That's not like because, like, Judy's mom is sort of neutral. Arguably. So yeah, she's the only mom who's shown to be, like, explicitly caring about the child she's in charge of.
Yeah. And I think the problem is that it doesn't really go into that. The problem for me is that the movie doesn't go into that enough. It just focuses on the dad's absence, all of the dad's absences.
Well, I would say it focuses on the teens, and it contextualizes that with the how their fathers don't match with what they want their fathers to be.
Right. Yeah, it's like they have this idea of what their dads should be, and this idea of what men should be, and they're trying to fulfill it, but they don't see it anywhere.
I'm just thinking, like, if Jim and Judy just swap parents, do you think they just solve all the problems?
Maybe for this specific circumstance, but not in the long run.
Because, like, other than Judy's dad not wanting to kiss her on the mouth and then, I guess, like, slapping her when she tries to do it.
Yeah.
We don't really see him doing any... You could read bad things into that, but, like, he doesn't... There's no other issues with him.
He's a pretty flat character.
Yeah. Whereas, I imagine Jim's father... Do the parents have names?
I don't remember.
The cop has a name. Yeah, so I guess maybe to make the maid not having a name less bad, this could maybe, or no, I think the cop might say the parents' names when they show up, so never mind. But Yeah, so I could see Jim's dad be like giving the level of affection that Judy seems to want her father to give her.
Yeah, me too. That's a really interesting idea. We should write that movie.
Like the 5-minute movie of them just like, hey, of them parent trapping each other.
Yeah, that's right. And all their problems are gone.
Wait, you have my face. We could be twins.
She puts on a suit.
His red jacket.
Right. Oh yeah.
He puts on her red jacket.
That's right. He learns about what it's like to be a woman in the 50s. Oh man, this is great. This is a whole new movie.
And Plato is just left by himself.
Yep. Oh no.
We mentioned it briefly, but of the 3 main characters, Plato is the one who is a visible minority.
Yeah. And
of the characters overall, the Crawford family maid is the only second non-main character who is a person of color. Mm-hmm. Or is there might be a cop.
They're the 2 most prominent ones for sure.
Yeah. And so at the end of the movie, Plato gets shot and heavily implied that he dies, if not explicitly.
Yeah.
He shot instantly dead from this one cop from 50 feet away?
This sniper cop with a revolver.
50 yards, across the yard from this observatory.
Yeah.
So he's dead, and the Crawford family maid is just in tears, over the death of this child that she is fond for, she cares for.
She loves for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the people of color don't really come out that don't do very well in the movie.
Yeah.
The white people are fine.
Yeah.
Both in numbers and in terms of things that happen to them.
Yeah.
Even the switchblade fight, Buzz is, as far as we know, completely unharmed, I think.
Yeah.
And James Dean's character, Jim, has very superficial cuts, as it turns out.
Yeah.
Could just be a failure of the makeup department for that, but because they seem pretty or I don't know, I'm not in very many switchblade fights.
Right.
But when he just takes off his shirt, dabs at his cuts, and puts on another white shirt, and the white shirt is fine for the rest of the movie. So
yeah.
And he's fine. He was just chatting immediately after the stabbing, so.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So the 2 people of color are just plot devices for the white people, right?
Yeah, largely.
That sucks. It's also the 50s. I heard a phrase recently of you can only judge things for the era that they're in.
Sure.
And people for the era that they're in.
Yeah.
And which is absolutely true. It doesn't mean that it's excusable, but it's a reason why something like this would happen. We don't need a reason why, right? It sucks that it's like this. I guess I don't really have a point beyond that.
But yeah, and I didn't quite care for the movie. I myself personally have sort of a aversion to old movies, sort of really? Maybe I'm sort of spoiled with the new fast-paced kind of action movies.
So you're revving up for our classics series.
Yeah.
All right. Let's do this.
But cause like I said, the movie didn't really take off until they got to the mansion at the end.
Really?
In the final act of it.
It became more like a modern action at that point, for sure.
Yeah, stuff was happening.
Yeah.
They weren't... Because, also, part of it was I wasn't sure what was normal things teens do in that time and how much of it was just weird movie stuff.
Right.
Because, I don't know, maybe teens in 55 just had switchblade fights every other day. Maybe that's just, a normal everyday thing. That felt weird to me.
Yeah.
So, I don't have the, period context for some of the things that happen, same with Judy. I don't know if a 16-year-old girl wanting to kiss her father on the mouth was a normal thing.
Right.
Or her being super weird.
Well, that's important that we don't have that context, and I don't have it either. We can still watch a movie in modern times and think about what it means now. We can speculate, but what's important is what we take away from it now.
Sure, definitely.
Yeah.
I just feel like that creates a distance, between me and the characters on the film, which, arguably a lot of the movies try to reduce that distance. Mm-hmm. Right. And a movie being an old movie just has that built into it.
Yeah.
Like I remember like a couple months ago I was watching The Treasure of the Sierra Madre, which is this old noir, I guess. I don't know. It has Humphrey Bogart. It's a black and white movie, and he and this guy just like meet this prospector, and they want to like pan for gold, and then things go wrong because Humphrey Bogart's character is an ass. But yeah, there was a lot of stuff there that I just wasn't sure. Like it not being in color was like colors are pretty, you know. Like, I want it pops more when there's more color. But also like the time gap between then and now, because it was like back in the black and white, back in the Humphrey Bogart days, right? So yeah, I just couldn't really get into it. I couldn't get the full context. As much context as I would have liked for it. And it also didn't really have the same, I don't know, constant pressure as like a noir detective gumshoe kind of thing has. Like The Maltese Falcon, I watched that and that was sort of okay. But like, I feel like we're sort of drifting from the movie. But like Casablanca, I couldn't get 15 minutes into that because it was just so slow for me.
Is that right?
At that time. Maybe if I went back to it again, I would have different feelings about it. But yeah, so like, and I feel like that's just the context. I don't have the, I don't know, historical context, the present day context from when it was the present day. Because like, so that created a distance. I feel like I'm repeating myself.
I think I know what you're saying. It complicates our viewing of it. Like it's harder to relate to it like a modern movie. It's like for a modern movie, we don't have to study the current context we live in. We just know our context. We watch the movie and we get something from it. We know the references to like Trump and like current affairs.
Yeah, and even if it's a modern day movie about a period piece.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's for us in the modern day, they know what to tweak for so that we still understand stuff. Totally. Like I remember hearing about that cowboy show with all the swearing, Deadwood. Was that
I think so. I'm not certain.
How, like, if they wanted the dialogue, like there's from what I haven't seen it myself, but I've heard some stuff about it. If I'm getting the title right, how there's a lot of swearing in it, but it's modern day swearing that they wouldn't do back then, but they have to update it because you don't, like, nowadays, there's not as much, oomph behind someone calling someone else a humbug. But back then, that was like a pretty, like, heavy insult or whatever. Like, pretty, like, that was like a heavy hitter.
It's like saying bah humbug in a Christmas tale, is that what that is?
Yeah.
That was like a big deal?
Yeah.
Like walking around saying, oh, F-bomb.
Yeah.
Really?
I don't know what like the time period overlap between A Christmas Carol and the Deadwood is.
Yeah.
But like they had to, I remember hearing that in terms of the dialogue, they had to update the cuss words because the old ones just don't mean anything anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. If we're going to watch these older films, then that's something that we'll just have to accept, that we don't have all the context. But I still feel like it's worth it to look at it from a modern perspective. It's worth it and interesting because of what it gives us. Yeah.
Like I didn't specifically enjoy this film. I shouldn't say enjoy. I didn't specifically like this film, but I could see how it was. I could see how other people could like it, or how it was like a big like cultural turning point or whatever.
Right.
Because if this is the first movie that has teens being bored, there are so many movies now about teens being bored.
Yeah.
There are TV shows about teens being bored. Like, you could argue that Riverdale is about teens being bored.
Yeah.
But if this is the first one, then yes, totally. I could see that. Yeah. Same, like, I have a similar thing with, Seinfeld.
Oh.
Like, I never, like, watched it specifically. If I did watch it, it would be on in the background while I was doing something else. Right. Because it's not funny to me because it was so successful that, the TV shows following it have just taken all the bits and pieces. So all the innovative parts of it are now standard practice.
Yeah, absolutely. I teach a jazz history course at a seniors place where I work. And one thing that struck me when I was studying for that is that Louis Armstrong's solos nowadays, the trumpet player Louis Armstrong, they sound commonplace, and they sound like a good trumpet player doing a solo. Like, yeah, that's a thing. At the time, they were groundbreaking, and after that, everyone started copying his solos, and that's what became the lexicon that we have now for that type of soloing. Even like old-fashioned, that kind of trumpet soloing, like New Orleans style. Whereas at the time, like I said, groundbreaking, totally new. Yeah.
Yeah, and like I guess also on the topic of like lost cultural contexts from the past. Mm-hmm. Like a lot of the like swing songs from the, I don't know, 30s, 40s, 20s, I don't know. I don't know when swing was big, but a lot of them were like super dirty, or as dirty as you could get away with of the time. But now with shows like Riverdale, it doesn't really like raise any hackles because it's super bland now.
Yeah.
But like how like there's a musical group called the Puppini Sisters. I believe they're it's a modern group, but they sing old swing songs. And I remember reading that they lean towards one that are like racy.
Oh yeah.
Of the time. Like one of the songs they sing is In the Mood, which when you think about it, okay, sure, I can see that being like a dirty song.
Yeah.
But also with context, like stuff that, like the more subtle stuff, or like the more like culturally contextual stuff. Like, for example, that song, that holiday song, Baby It's Cold Outside.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah. That's the reaction that it gets now from people who are like woke or whatever. Of like, I've heard it described as, the date rape Christmas song.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. But apparently it's, and like the most like, worrying line is the line by if you don't know, it's a duet. Right, between a male singer and a female singer. Mm-hmm. And one of the lines by the female singer is, "What's in this drink?"
Yeah.
Right. But I just read this a couple days ago, but apparently that doesn't mean today, that means something else than what it meant in the past, because like that was sort of a like this just off the shelf like joke.
Right.
You would say oh, what's in this drink?
Yeah, like
carbon water, like.
Yeah, I assume it's supposed to be a cutesy, like, did you give me alcohol, when she knows she has alcohol? That was the intention, but now we think it's like drugs dissolved in a drink.
Yeah. and how like the stuff she says, the female vocalist in it says are her like giving the line she's supposed to say.
Oh yeah.
So when she's hassled about it later on, she can say, "No, I said I should go," but then whatever.
She even says like, "At least I tried."
Yeah.
Or I can say that I tried.
Yeah. That's like, and that like in the time period of the song, I could be completely wrong. Maybe this person I read on the internet is completely making shit up. But in the context of the time, the people who were listening to it of the time would get that, would understand that, like, she's covering all her bases. She won't get in trouble.
Yeah.
And it's her, and like how it is of this woman who is like reclaiming the agency that she doesn't have, or like that women who just want to just spend the night at some dude's house didn't have at that time.
Right.
And so she's, so it's not as like, apparently, it's not as problematic as
it is nowadays. As
people think it is nowadays, because we today don't have that, context, that social context of, oh, she's, of like, oh no, she should say this. Oh, she said that. Okay. Kind of thing. She's like covering her bases of like, she is, I tried, I guess I, nothing else I can do. I guess I just have to sleep with the guy who I want to sleep with. She's totally on board with spending the night at this dude's place, but society and like cultural norms says she has to not want to.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's exactly why it's hard to watch something like Rebel Without a Cause. It's hard to watch it, period. Any of these movies, because those things happen where spouse abuse can happen, or child abuse, like the dad slapping his daughter. Arguably child abuse is more socially acceptable. It's hard to watch that and to take something away from it. It's also important to know that this happened and where we're coming from now and why we think things like this are no longer acceptable. Like, we can't ignore these things, but we have to look at them in the context of where we are now. That's how I feel about it. Well,
yeah, I was going to say something, but I forgot what it was.
In Rebel Without a Cause, in relation to spousal relationships, like you're talking about with the Christmas song, there is a song called The Christmas Song. This is Baby It's Cold Outside.
Really good branding, though, on that name.
Yeah. Something that struck me as odd with relationships in Rebel Without a Cause is that the male-female relationships seem to be built on this man does this, woman does this, where, as I was saying to you earlier before we were recording, I never saw relationships like that. From a teenager onwards, I always saw it as your friends, and there are differences between the man and the woman. That's sort of how I was raised. But you're friends first, and this is a partnership that you're building together. It's not necessarily taking on like the dad role and the mom role. That's how I was raised. So to see couples like the parents in this movie who seem to be more like employees fulfilling a role at home and then having friends outside of that, even that concept is hard for me to relate to, coming from where I come from.
Yeah, and as I was saying, like, as I mentioned before the recording, like, you sort of still see relics of that in some of the sitcoms, right? Where the husband is, like, the husband and wife just hate each other.
Yeah.
You know, like Everybody Loves Raymond. Other ones, I guess.
Or Honeymooners, going way back.
Yeah, the Honeymooners.
He threatens to beat his wife all the time.
Straight to the moon.
Yeah.
Of just like in the more recent sitcoms that still have this bickering husband and wife pairing. It's the husband who's like a dopey, goofy, nice guy.
Yeah.
Who just wants to hang out with his buddies. And the wife is more often than not like a shrill, overbearing, mean lady.
Yeah.
Who, like, why are they together? You know?
I feel like this trope was really strong from like, up until like 2010, then I feel like I saw less and less of it.
Yeah, I think sitcoms in general have also been slowly drifting away from the couple, the husband-wife pairing. Mm-hmm. And like, an argument could be made that this setup is a hard turn away, like, is the opposite end of the, like, if it was flipped back the way it used to be, of, like, you know, an I Love Lucy, of, like, oh, Lucy, you messed up, and I, the man, have to solve your problems, you know?
Well, I heard recently...
Or, like, the Honeymooners. The Honeymooners are also, yes.
Apparently in I Love Lucy, the man, Frankie, was that his name?
Ricky.
Ricky, yeah. He would, like, spank Lucy sometimes, and that was okay. I just heard that recently. That took me off guard. Anyways, we're getting far away from Rebel Without a Cause. Final thoughts, you think?
I watched it.
Well,
I watched it more than... I've seen it 2.5 times. That in terms of time, that is more than the entire first season of The Good Place. So I'm sorry if I'm a little, like, bitter about the movie, but I've seen that movie more than I've wanted to see it.
Well, what conclusions can you draw about the story?
The story. Why don't you go first, and I'll disagree with what you say.
You'll disagree with everything I say? Sure. I thought it was interesting to watch because it gave me the contexts that I've been talking about of how 1950s America, perhaps, if we can make it that general, was looking at teens and was starting to talk about teens' emotions and what that leads to and what they need in a family life. It seems like it's interesting to look at this as a starting point to think about that and about the establishment of teens as a type of person that deserves to be respected in its own right, so that people aren't just children and then adults. There's this phase in between where they're looking for guidance and they're looking for things to do, and they're sad and they don't know how to deal with things, and they're violent and they're emotional. It was an interesting study of that for me.
No, it was, like I said, I enjoyed the last 20 minutes of the movie.
The action, the
like stuff happening part of the movie. But Yeah, like I said, like I couldn't tell how much of it was, like how much of the weird stuff was it being 55, how much of the weird stuff was just weird stuff for the movie, how much of the weird stuff was just an actor doing a weird thing, you know, so like, and the additional filter of it, of the time difference, and the context of the time sort of made that, less clear than I like in like a modern movie. I also feel like because like I hadn't seen it before, but I've heard the title before. Right. And how like James Dean and his like white t-shirt and red jacket and he's like the cool guy kind of whatever. But I'd never like seen it. I've seen the posters. I've heard the title, but I'd never seen it before.
It's iconic, right?
Yeah. And I guess like I was expecting the emphasis on the title to be more on Rebel than on Without a Cause. Because after seeing the movie, it is very clear that the emphasis is on Without a Cause.
Yeah.
Rather than on Rebel.
Yeah, that's true. Who is the rebel in this? I think all of them?
Yeah, I think all three of them, and even like the gang members.
Yeah.
The like sort of like
the gang members.
Toothless, leather jacket, switchblade fighting, car or leather jacket
boys,
are also rebels, but like they don't have. I didn't come up with this on my own. I think I read this. On a thing, are without direction. They don't have a cause to fight for or whatever.
Yeah.
As they try and find where they and their age group, their teen age group, is supposed to fit in the cultural context, in the world of their present. Because I think you mentioned it when we were rewatching it. The Judy's brother, who's like, what was it, like 7?
He's a kid.
Yeah, he's like a child. Is the only non-teen and non-adult that we see with any meaningful screen time, any meaningful like screen presence.
Yeah. And he's just nothing but loved, right?
Yeah, yeah. Like in the scene when Judy is trying to kiss her father, he's like, "I will not do that," and then he picks up his son, like, "How are you doing, buddy?"
Yeah, practically kissing his son.
Yeah, and that's what sort of makes Judy upset.
Yeah.
But, so if those are the categories we have, you know, like child and parents, then we have the main characters and their like classmates and such.
And where do they fit?
Yeah, trying to find out where in the middle they fit. So yeah, I can give it that. I don't,
For this to be such a popular movie and for it to stand the test of time, it might be indicative that this was on society's mind at the time.
Yeah.
And going forwards, this was on their mind. Because even James Dean, I had heard that that character was written for him. Because that was a lot like his character, or his personality, I mean. And he was a 24-year-old. But perhaps he
teen.
Yeah, teen. Maybe this was a young adult sentimentality. He was also a movie star, so he lived a different life than most young people. Yeah. So yeah, this might have been indicative of this is how people were feeling at the time. In the same way that Casablanca was a movie of many of its type, but that one stood out and stood the test of time for its own reasons.
This movie, Rebel Without a Cause, was also very much like of a particular like wealth class.
Yeah. Right,
because like both Jim and Judy are like very aggressively like middle class or like upper middle class maybe.
Yeah.
Right.
Aggressively. They fought their way there.
Yeah, no, because like I was surprised. I mentioned this before the recording, I think, but like when we first see Jim's parents in the police station, they are dressed to the nines. Like the dad has a bow tie and a tuxedo and a top hat.
Yeah, that's
the mom has like a mink coat over like a fancy evening gown
with a flower and stuff.
The grandma is also dressed up. She just disappeared. I don't know where she went.
Yeah. Couldn't tell you.
But then when in the very next scene in their house, when they're at home, it's just like a normal white picket fence suburb house.
Yeah.
And I was very surprised. And a similar house with Judy. I think she's literally like 3 doors down from him. Whereas Plato, did we ever find out where, like in relation to the other houses he lives?
somewhere far away. That's about all they said.
Sure, but I think from the single glimpse we get of his place, it looks very, very nice.
Yeah.
Like very fancy. Maybe they couldn't afford to film there for too long. So they only had it for like an hour.
Yeah.
Just run in, grab the gun, then run out.
Yeah, that's
We only have one take of this. But his house is also very expensive looking.
Yeah.
But he is also unhappy. He is as unhappy, if not more so, than Jim and Judy.
Yeah.
But none of them are dramatically poor. You know, they're all very like comfortable lives. Jim's family. I know you said final thoughts a while ago. I guess I have more thoughts.
Sure.
Jim's family is apparently... Did we ever learn what I was going to say his parents do, but I don't imagine his mom in this culture has a job. Do we know what his dad does?
I don't think they mentioned it. I don't think it was super important.
They might have said something when they were because they were in the police station, right? They just came from a party. Mm-hmm. They might have said something about that.
Oh, maybe the work party. I'm not sure. It wasn't important enough to be a main point, right?
Yeah, and maybe just nondescript work.
Yeah.
It's a work party.
1950s middle class work.
Yeah. I have a briefcase and a suit. I'm at work.
Yeah.
And we don't know what Judy's dad does either, I don't think. But with Jim's parents, they're apparently wealthy enough to just pick up and move at the drop of a hat, which is apparently something they've done several times because Jim keeps making a mess of stuff.
Yeah.
And he says it's because the parents are fighting or not fighting or whatever.
Yeah.
But they're able to just pick up and move.
Yeah.
So they have money to do that.
Yeah. They're comfortable.
Yeah. So, and again, I think I might be cribbing this from something I read as well, but it's very suburban, very middle class. They don't have yachts. They don't have horses that they own or anything, or mansions or estates or
and they don't even
land.
have servants, right? Except for Plato.
And but they're also not living in poverty. Mm-hmm. So it's very middle class.
Yeah,
maybe different levels of middle class, but still middle class nonetheless. Mm-hmm. And I feel but maybe that's what it's talking about, right? Because if they were poor, then they don't have time to be bored.
Yeah. They find a job.
Yeah. I guess go to the factory or whatever. Yeah. The family business of the factory.
So,
but if they were super wealthy, then they just have enough money to do whatever they wanted.
Yeah.
Although, it's unclear how much money Plato has, but, if they did have just money to throw at things, that might also be a way for them to find their place.
Yeah.
Or also similar to the lower class, have a family business they need to go into, some kind of dynastic company of a wealthy industrialist or whatever.
Yeah.
But we don't have that. There's 3 people. They could have easily had, I say easily, they could have had one of them be super poor, one of them be super rich, and then one of them be in the middle, but they had all 3 of them.
Well, one of them was significantly richer, apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I see what you're saying. And that could also be a sign of the times for 1955 white America, a lot of middle class to high middle class people. And this is what is interesting people at the time.
Yeah. Them having the time. Yeah. I think, I sort of mentioned this before the recording, but the from what I understand, and I could be wrong about this again, the rise of the teenagers, sort of came about with the rise of extra money and also extra time, free time. Because they didn't really, from what I understand, they didn't really have free time or money to throw around before that. Because before that was World War II.
Yeah.
And before that was World War I.
And the Depression between those.
And the Depression. So them bouncing back from the Depression. We have money, we can do things. What are we going to do?
Also, to add to that, in the 50s, there was a huge boom of appliances. All of a sudden we had fridges and microwaves and all that kind of stuff. Or maybe not microwaves. But anyways,
But conveniences. Machines for conveniences.
Yeah.
And how, that's sort of where teens sprung up of this. We have money, so we don't need to send you to the factory.
Right. We're bored.
Yeah. Cause I remember in one of my, English classes, it was a children's lit class, and we were looking at the early books for quote unquote children. And this was around the, industrial age or whatever, way before this. of how children as a concept, or like, didn't really exist. You know, they were largely considered as like just small adults, you know. Like, once you were old enough to be capable of, like, I don't know, lifting a broom or whatever, you know, they would send you to the factory to be like a chimney sweep or whatever. If you were like a toddler, sure, you're a toddler, you can't do anything, you don't have to pull your weight. But when you can, like, stand and, like, lift things, then there wasn't a sense of, like, play.
There was an age where they thought that you were adults. In different periods of time. I remember one was 11 years old, I believe. They thought you were capable of rational thought all of a sudden.
Yeah, and like they would also need children to fit inside the small crevices of the machines to clean them out.
Right.
You know, like that's
so horrible.
Like cancer, the horrible illness.
You can just say cancer.
But I'm like, anyway, the name, because I'm talking about the name of it. The name.
Oh.
The name comes from chimney sweeps.
Oh.
Right. Because they would, you know, shove these children into the chimneys to, like, clean the chimneys.
Yeah.
And they would get, like, tumors that, like dramatically large tumors.
Yeah.
That apparently looked like crabs.
Oh.
Or, were, like, in the shape of, like, crabs with, like, a major one and then, like, one sticking out or whatever.
Oh, my goodness.
And so they named Cancer after the constellation of Cancer.
Really?
With the crab constellation. That's where that's from what I recall.
Yeah.
That's where that comes from. Of, like, these, like, horrifically dramatic, cancerous tumors that these, children chimney sweeps would get from being in chimneys all day.
Right.
Because they didn't,
from this movie.
Yeah, but because they didn't have the concept of, like, play or, like, adolescence.
Oh, yeah.
Or whatever. You were a child, and then on your 11th birthday or whatever, you were going to the factory with your dad.
Oh, yeah.
To, like, make money so you don't have to be poor anymore, or whatever.
And now we're finding, like, what do you do with teens now, right? At this point in time.
Yeah, now that you have the time and extra income to support, or to not need a child to immediately go into work.
Yeah. Thank you so much for listening. Do you have any other thoughts?
I don't know. I
think it's probably good to wrap up here. It's been an hour and 40 minutes. All right. Well, I think we can wrap it up there. Thanks so much for listening. So this was our first episode
of our capital C classical movie series. Yeah, sure.
Maybe season. We'll come up with a good name. So we'll have a whole bunch more classical movies.
A whole bunch?
In this.
We'll have some more.
Vein. A whole bunch, at least 20 in this vein. And then after that, we'll move on to
a different theme.
Yeah, to give us some guidance in that way. We really appreciate you listening to us.
Yeah, if you want to show your appreciation, you could give us a rating on iTunes.
We would love
just give
5
us
stars.
5 stars, a handful of stars would be best. It really helps us out. If you want to go the extra mile, you could leave us a review on iTunes or wherever else you find your podcasts. Although iTunes, Apple Podcasts is the best way to do that because it reaches the most people, from what I understand.
Yep. It also, from what I understand, helps us a lot on the business end. Leaving a review and a 5-star rating.
Yes.
Gets us lots of attention from more listeners, from advertisers.
Yeah, tell your friends, tell your family, tell people who you think would like this podcast to listen to this podcast that you think they will like. Most of all, we really appreciate you listening to it. So thank you. You can find us online at AllDoubt.com. You can find us at Facebook at AllDoubtPod. You can email us at AllDoubtPod@gmail.com. You can reach our Patreon, which is AllDoubt. Yeah, so reach out to us on there. Say hi. We'll probably say hi back. Yes, probably. Yeah. Probably, yeah. If we have nothing better to do. No, we'll say hi back. Do we want to say what the next one's going to be? Do we want to call our shot? Yeah. Well, I would love to do the Sound of Music. Sound of Music? Yeah. Okay, I thought we were going to do the Citizen Kane. Next up, we have Citizen Kane. Citizen Kane. So stay tuned. Bye. Have a good week, everybody.